Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today I made a little road trip out to Mississippi to visit with my buddy Clark Easterling over here at Windy Hill Foundry. Say hello, Clark.
How are y'all today?
So if you haven't seen Clark before, I know I've done some posts, I think, on social media with him. Adam Booth's done a video out here. We actually did a little get-together out here a couple of months ago, and I didn't get to shoot any video. I was busy. I had other responsibilities that weekend, right?
Yeah.
So I was helping him out with some electrical work.
Yeah, and it turned into a major project for Keith.
That's all right. We got Clark all wired up. But anyway, I have come back out here today, and what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be doing some casting of some cast iron. And Clark's set up to do that. He's got a foundry here. This is the guy that makes my straight edges for me. So you guys have seen those straight edges. I've been offering those for sale. This is where all that stuff is done at. And I wanted to come out and get some video because what we're going to be making today is this part right here. And I've got a pattern that that I made up. And what this is this is going to be the piston that goes into our Steam Stoker Engine project that we're working on for the Nashville Steam group. And the original pistons, because we had to bore the cylinders a little bit oversized, I was doing the research, and yeah, we really need to put a little bit of an oversized piston in there. So I took the original pistons, plus I had some drawings, and I modeled these up in Fusion 360 on the computer and 3D CAD. And basically all I did is I just had these 3D printed into patterns. And we've got a cope and a drag, a split pattern. You'll see us molding these up later. But that is the job today. And Clark is the expert when it comes to pouring iron, at least as far as I'm concerned, he's the expert.
I'm always learning.
We're all always learning. But anyway, we're going to be doing that today. And I thought you guys might enjoy seeing the process of working with someone that knows a lot more about metal casting than I do. I've done some metal casting, not so much cast iron. My experience has been more in brass and aluminum and very limited there. Clark's got a lot more experience with it than I do. So I'm going to be learning from him today.
Well, and this should go pretty smoothly. We're going to start off.
Don't jinx us.
we're going to start off by reconditioning the facing sand. We want to keep a real good finish on this. Then we'll back it with the regular sand, and it ought to go well. I don't see any reason to put a riser in here any bigger than the one I use as a standard.
Good. So right here what we're doing is we're mulling this sand. This is the facing sand that will go in the pattern, and this mulling process just gets all these little clumps out of it, right?
Yeah.
And also adds water to it so it will bind. Right now it's dry.
The muller actually slides the sand together like this along with compacting it and creates a more binding agent between the water, the clay, and the sand.
Okay. Good deal. Basically just rolls around. There's some wheels in here that are on some springs, and it just mixes everything together.
And I will have to shut it in a second to keep us from breathing all this dust, but I'll show you what it...
There you go. And shut the top.
Right. Depending on the time of the year, depends on how much water I have to add to each batch. They always require a cup. Here lately it's been like a cup and a half. And that goes on for 3 minutes, so I always look at that clock, so it's almost 3 now. So at 3:03, we'll dump this away. And in the meantime, I kind of add a little more to it as I go. Yeah, that looks a lot better.
So we've got our sand mold up here, and I think we're ready to start ramming this up. So Clark, where do you want to position that in the mold?
Well, let's dust it first.
Okay.
If you'll take the parting agent there.
Yep.
Just lightly tap around it. And then take this little brush.
Kind of brush it around.
Yeah.
How much you want to put on there? Is that enough, or?
That should be, as long as it will. See how it's bonding to that tacky paint?
Yep. So this is just a parting dust. It just helps remove it from the sand.
Uh-huh. And you'll also want to go around your sides.
Yep. I'm gonna pick it up.
Yeah, it's just about hard to do otherwise. The facing sand is separate from the backing sand.
Right. It's just a finer sand that's been sifted through a sieve to get it down really, really fine.
Right.
And this will be the layer that goes right on the pattern itself, right? And we want that. That's just to make sure we get a really nice finish on the casting, correct?
Correct. And I try to throw this right back in the back and then shovel it from the front away from the pattern in case I drop any large pieces on there. Now, I wouldn't worry about trying to do the edges. You'll be machining all that
that's
off.
going to be machined anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll just make sure we cover that good.
Okay.
All right.
Now we'll start with the backing sand, right?
Right.
And I got a riddle somewhere, right?
You do?
Here it is.
Right. I start off with this one.
Okay.
And I hold one end to my chest.
Here, I'll let you scoop.
And I hold it away from the part first to put it in here.
Okay.
In case I drop any on it. And then what this does is it locks that facing sand in place. Once I've got about 1/8 of an inch build up there, then I go to the next size riddle.
All right.
Which is this one.
Happy with that? Okay.
And now you can actually hold it over the pattern if you want to.
And we'll just...
Yeah, and then you can dump that. It goes a lot faster with 2 people.
Teamwork.
That's good. And
Is that good?
spread it out with your hand. Careful not to get
down
close
to
your
the pattern.
pattern.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll add a little more to it.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and try to flush it out. Maybe a little more. That should be, that'll put us closer to the top. All that's going to compress down as we ram it.
Right.
And I still go ahead and float it.
Yep.
Level it out. Now, I take the larger mallet for this size flask, and I just start with the peen end here.
Go around.
And I go around the edges first, pressing it in place.
You want to start out kind of light, right?
Right.
And is that about right, or do I
That's
need to go?
just right.
Okay.
And you use that same amount of pressure and go up and down all the way across. And then once you reach the end, you'll rotate 90 degrees and work the other direction. And each time you do that, you'll increase the pressure a little bit. You don't have to hit it too hard, but you'll definitely be able to tell when it's ready. And I usually make anywhere from 5 to 6 passes.
Okay.
Back and forth, steadily. Yeah.
Getting a little bit heavier each time.
Uh-huh.
Turn it over now, or keep going?
The only time I ever use this is once we top it off.
Okay.
And it sounds like it's good.
Okay.
So I scratch it with the
Little pick.
yeah.
And that just kind of gives you
Yeah, it takes that slicked clay off.
gives us
And
something for
roughs
that
it up.
next layer to bond to.
Right. And then from here, we're not going to have to sieve it. I'll just pile it up. Don't have to hit it that hard.
Okay. So tell us about this sand. This sand, they call it green sand.
This is green sand.
This black. It's
Yep.
black green sand.
Yep. A mixture of clay, sand. The clay is bentonite, and it's got a refractory to it to help prevent it from burning into the iron. The melting point of iron is always hotter than the melting point of sand, and so when you pour that into sand, you have to have an insulating refractory barrier there to protect it.
Gotcha.
So the mixture of coal dust, graphite, and some other things are added to it along with this to help keep that from happening. And I have sea coal that I also apply. And this this mixture is right at its peak. I don't dare add any more coal dust to it right now because I started having casting defects from it.
Gotcha. So just flip the whole thing over now?
Yeah, just stand it up on the edge and then put the board on the opposite side of it.
Okay.
All right. And before I do anything else, these registration holes usually fill up with sand. So I'll go ahead and get those.
Let me get those too while you're at it.
Yeah.
And got little pins there that this registers with.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Here we go.
Yeah, I do
The
too.
slightest amount of air current in here will take most of that stuff away. So you'll take your ducks back is what they call this stuff.
And you want to put it on the sand too, right?
Right.
And that keeps the two halves from sticking together,
Uh-huh.
as well as helping it part from the pattern. So, is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be. Let's see. And yeah, I'd take that brush and just brush that in. There's a membrane on the outside of that paint that'll stick to the sand and create havoc trying to pull those out without keeping the sand intact. And you only have to worry about it on the actual pattern. And I shouldn't have dumped that much now. The way I usually go is around the perimeter, just to tighten the edges first. I don't know if that really helps or not, but that's just the way I've understood it was always supposed to start off. Possibly because it'll keep the sand from shifting. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it'll, there you go. So we know our riser is about right here. So I'd put our sprue right there.
And that's going to be your pouring hole.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, I'm going to let you do that. You know what you're doing. Well,
That's not much to grind.
that one came out pretty good. You lost a little bit on the side, but actually I think it just dropped down in there from the side. I think that's great.
Yeah, this side's clean. All right, so we're gonna.
This is our gates, right?
Yeah, this is the feeder. And the gates are going to cut into the sides, or our runner. They call them a feeder and a runner. I'm trying to keep the depth of this about 3/4 of an inch. And now we'll come in. Now we're working on the cope. And this is the feeder that goes from the sprue to the riser.
And the purpose of the riser is?
The riser helps control some of the shrinkage, but it also captures a lot of the trash before it can get into the main mold. It's 90% of the time when I use this, it's not as a riser, it's actually catches the trash. And it works great.
Yeah, and basically when he's saying a riser, he's got a well, if you want to, it's going up, not down, but it's a void in the casting that's not part of the pattern. That fills up with the hot iron, and as that metal in the pattern cools, it's going to draw in some extra metal out of that riser to kind of just feed it, so you don't end up with like a little dip or whatever in your pattern. It's just shrinkage in the pattern. It just kind of helps keep the pattern full when it starts cooling. Correct?
Correct.
And you're not too worried.
All right.
So we're getting ready to dump these flasks and see what we got. So last night when we did the pour, one of the molds filled up nicely. Unfortunately, we didn't have quite enough iron to totally fill this one up here. And this one's questionable as to whether it's going to turn out all right or not. I'm afraid that we were just a little bit short. It was close, but we may have to remold that one. The moment of truth is about to show up here. Clark's got this really nifty hoist system over here to help him move these things around.
It sure makes a difference when you figure how much weight can be in a mold.
Lost your power cord there.
Yeah.
This is a bin he's got where he just keeps his sand at, reuses it over and over and over again. So he breaks his molds out over here in this trough. Around the edge. Well, yeah, the center hub isn't raised up enough.
Yeah, 1/8 of an inch.
I mean, it was so close. Yeah, and one of the problems we have is you don't really know how much iron you need until you do the pour. And particularly on these one-off parts. You know, when you're doing a production job, it's a little bit easier because you've done it before and you kind of have a feel for how much you need, but didn't quite have enough on that one. Like I said, this just only needed about 1/8 of an inch, and that hub would have been all right. We got a little shrink in there. It didn't fill completely up, so no problem. We'll mold up another one and do another one. I'm hoping this other one we did is going to be a success. He's got some screws in there. We put those in on the second one because we kept having problems with the center sections not pulling out. And those are just kind of to help hold those cavities in there. They're not in the casting, they were just in the sand, but just to give some extra strength. So we didn't show that when we molded it up on video, but it kind of helped keep those areas in there. That was the vents that we put in there for the gases and stuff. Well, those will just cut right off. This thing's been cooling down for probably 7-8 hours, I guess, but it's still hot. Which is what you want. You want it to cool down real nice and slow. And that one looks like a success. Just cleaning it up. It's amazing how hard that sand is in there after it was packed in so tight and then dries down with all the heat. It just almost turns into like cement. But get it out. I wanted you guys to see the casting as it comes out, because you can really kind of see what we were doing in the mold. So you can kind of see things a little bit better now that it's out of the mold. But there's your pouring basin, comes down the sprue, comes over here. Again, this is your riser. That's just that little reservoir we were talking about. Of course, you got a little bit of reservoir in the pouring hole as well. It comes out the gates, comes into the side, fills up the pattern. You got the vents here that lets the gases and everything, the air escape from inside that mold. It fills up, solidifies, and there's your casting. So what we'll do next, and probably do it off camera, is we'll cut these off. Of course, cut all these sprues off, just clean it up over on the grinder, get all the sand and stuff out of there, and I'll have a casting ready to take home and do some machining to make my pistons with. So anyway, there you go. Well, as you can tell, I'm no longer at Clark's. I've actually come back home, and just to kind of bring you up to speed where we were, after we did the pour, I had to get up early the next morning and drive back home, and just was not going to have time to actually bring the castings back with me like I had originally hoped we would have them done before then. So Clark went ahead and knocked the castings out. of the molds. He cleaned them up, and then he put them into a furnace that he has that actually heats them up to a certain temperature, holds them at for a certain period of time, and then slowly drops it back down. It's a heat treat process. It does some stress relieving in the castings. It kind of helps prevent hardness along the edges, and just really makes them all around a better, higher quality casting. This is something standard he does on all of his stuff. So after the heat treat process was done, he did pack these up and mail them back to me, and I got them here, so I thought I'd go ahead and zoom you in and show you the finished product that we got back from the foundry. So here you go. These are the two raw castings. I brought over one of the original pistons that we took out. And the reason I'm having to make new pistons, guys, is that we actually had to bore the cylinder out a little bit oversized. And according to the specs in the books, you actually want to have a oversized piston to go in there as well. It's not off by much, but it is off a little bit. So we will be machining these castings at some point in the future. You notice the original had a kind of these little features here on one side. On the other side, it's just round. So I actually got these turned both sides of the pattern there. And we'll have to drill and bore these out. That's actually a tapered bore. Turn the outside, get the thickness to the right side. And then there's also some grooves. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's piston rings in there, and I haven't even tried to pull those out. But these have all got to be machined. And like I said, we will be doing that at some point in the future. And with that, guys, that's going to be a wrap. I hope you enjoyed having a little glimpse of the foundry process, and from taking a pattern, making a mold, pouring it, and the whole process. It's quite involved, as you can see, but you can get these wonderful, great castings out of it. And I love working with cast iron. I love the fact that you can mold the cast iron and make pretty much any shape you want just by doing some good pattern making. And with that, guys, this will be a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go check out Clark, too, and his channel. He's got some pretty cool foundry videos over there on his site as well. And we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.